Welcome back to Tell Me More. On this episode, we have Dr. Wiles, Katy, and myself for the last episode before Dr. Wiles' study leave. So we have a good conversation about just what's been happening in the life of our church, what's coming up on Dr. Wiles' study leave, and how we love our neighbors. We hope it's a great episode for you.
Welcome to this episode of Tell Me More. We're all here. It's a rare summer occurrence. It's Monday morning. It's 11 o'clock-ish.
And it's not going to happen for a while.
The Reverend Dr. Dennis Wiles, the Honorable Reverend Luke Stehr, soon to be
and
Reverend
our
Doctor.
host, and our host,
solidly Reverend, no Doctor.
And our host, Katy Reed Hodges.
That's me. Yeah, you're right. This is kind of we're all in and out a lot in the summer, but especially July. We're not going to see the pastor for a few weeks in here. Luke, you're going to be off to Australia
this Thursday.
This week. So I'll be
Thursday.
I leave Thursday.
All by myself.
I got to be ready to go on Monday.
You can do it.
Don't want to be.
You can do it.
No, I think Ryan Chandler's preaching Sunday, so I think Ryan Chandler will join me in here.
I've made a petition to get Brian Sepulveda back in the podcast studio.
Brian is just hot and getting hotter right now.
Yeah,
he's just doing great.
Good. He is. I'm proud of him.
Here's a plug for Brian before I know this is normally we talk about stuff. I went and every year. Well, lately, our senior adult choir, TMS, the Master Singers, Beth Getz leads them. They go and do a little tour in Arlington and sing mostly at our retirement communities around and just encourage. It's really sweet. Jen and I have tried to hit one each summer just to support. So we went Thursday to Lynn Ridge, which is where Rinky Sanders lives. Is it Maryland? Brian, hold on. Davis, hold on. Sorry, this is my memory this morning.
We have several church members that live at Lynn Ridge.
Brian Bishop's mom has just moved there. Is it Maryland Bishop?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Maryland. There's several there. Anyway, they did great. The TMS choir was just very sweet, but also very attentive. It was just really good. But Brian did a devotional, and it was spot on exactly like what it was about flourishing in this stage of life, how you can flourish in this setting. And it involved things like you could be kind to the people that serve you here. And I was like, way to go, Brian. Anyway, I had a lot of things. And then he just, worked the room, loved the people. And Jen and I were both like, every minister needs to spend a day with Brian Sepulveda.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Yes,
that's some great folks. Yeah, Miss Bishop, she's Craig and Mark's mother also.
Of course, thank you.
There's the legendary Bishop family.
Yes, I just couldn't get my words out. Sorry to Craig and Mark.
It's okay.
I know you're here and you're valuable. And it seems that your mom is doing well.
What's interesting, when my mother, there toward the end of her life, we ended up having to put her in a place called Castle Rock down on Collins, down by the Arlington Airport. And Mother was, back in those days, there were parts of that was very confusing to her. She still always knew who we were, mostly. She knew who I was all the time. She would get confused sometimes about Cindy. But she thought that I had moved her into the church. And I still have voicemails from Mother because she would say, when you leave today, if you want to, when you come downstairs, just come by and see me on your way home. Because she thought she lived at the church.
Yeah. Which is kind of sweet. I mean,
it's
maybe
very sweet. Yes.
Yeah.
And so she would say things like, well, if you want to come have lunch today, we're eating in the fellowship hall. You can come have lunch. So we were talking one day, and I just said, Mother, how did your day go today? And she said, I've just had the greatest day. She said, just here at the church, it's just been a sweet day. She said that a lot. And I said, okay. She said, I was down at the fellowship hall today, and, the TMS choir sang, and we just enjoyed being together. And, I haven't been able to practice with them lately, but, I knew some of the songs. And I was like, oh, okay, Mother, that's really sweet. That's great. So I told Cindy, I said, Mother thinks... we had the conversation again. Mother thinks she's living in the fellowship hall.
She thinks TMS visited her.
She thinks the TMS choir. I get to work the next day, and Beth Getz said, we had the sweetest day yesterday with your mom, the TMS choir. I was like, well, there you go, Mother.
Well, we do have one of the, I'm totally biased with this, so this is a gut feeling, that we have one of the most vibrant and healthy ministries to senior adults in the area.
I would
we just
no
really do.
doubt about it.
All of it.
Awesome.
All of it. Not just those two, but those two alone, Beth Getz and Brian, really care for and provide
They're
for.
great. And they ministered our church.
Well, like tomorrow, I didn't know this, but Brian, we have a meeting, and Brian said, well, I can't be there because I'm taking 40 of our trads to the National Medal of Honor Museum. And I was like, of course you are.
Brian.
Of course you are.
Of course.
Where you go?
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the spectrum.
Yes, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
We had a pool party last
I
night.
know.
We
we
had
didn't
the
go.
I
so
didn't
much
see three little
fun.
boys.
They were tired and they
That's
don't know how
fair.
to swim.
Yeah.
So it was felt stressful.
Valid reasons.
It felt a little bit stressful.
You
for
would
us
have to go
push
into
it.
zone defense in the pool with all three of them.
We are-
But there was a bunch of us there.
I know,
We would
and
have helped you.
There are enough moms and dads
Yes,
that it's
we really did debate it, but we were like,
We took
We are
over.
very serious about swimming.
I
mean,
heard-
we
we're
took
nervous
over.
about it.
285 people at the BK water park last night
I would
from our
believe
church,
it. It was crazy. And I met several families I've never even met before.
which is so great.
Well, that's what I
Yes.
said yesterday to Luke. Not at BK, but at church. There were a ton of faces, mostly younger than me, moving about our welcome center that I just didn't know, and they weren't turning in circles like they didn't know their way.
Yeah.
They had at least been here once before.
Yeah.
I just don't know them.
Yeah.
Which Luke reminded me is just the greatest news. It's a great thing.
because
New
they don't all
people
register.
are my
They-
favorite
they,
people.
They don't always register either. They're just
No.
everywhere.
Yeah, but I just thought I need to spend some time
Sweet.
with, I need to
Well, we
I need
definitely
Ryan
took-
to let me teach
we
a
took the
young
pool
adult
over.
class or
we
something.
did take that pool over.
Oh my goodness!
What, you said 285?
285.
The entire. I mean, what I loved about it was just all ages. So there was something great. I mean, little Gideon was down in the little, whatever they call that little bitty
Little splash
place.
pool.
But Adler decided she was too big for it.
Oh,
So she needed to be in the deep end.
Okay,
so
she's graduated.
Poppy had to take her down to the deep end, and she's learning how to swim. And so yesterday at our pool, we spent the afternoon with her swimming. And we're at that point where we're trying to keep her from being too confident, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Because she can swim across our pool now.
But you got 300 kids. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's a crowded pool.
Yes. And so I was like, okay, Adler, we're going to go to the deep end. But, but she was appropriately nervous. She said, Poppy, I have to have you with me. I said, okay.
We want that. This is good.
That's right.
Yep.
So, but we had such a sweet time and talking to so many families and
I'm just,
Oh
that's
man,
great.
Josiah.
well, it was one of those
Good
nights.
job.
You just look
Good job,
around
young
and you look
families
at all
team.
the different families that are at that pool party and just all talking to one another. And you truly look and think absolutely anyone could belong at First Baptist Arlington.
yes, because it is all walks of life.
It is.
all
But it's
kinds of
beautiful.
families and beautiful,
it.
sweet,
We have some great young families.
a lot of
just
fun.
Sweet.
Yep.
Easy
we
to
had
love.
A great time.
And even if you're harder to love, we find you easier to love. So.
Yes, it was a really sweet day, and David, great job. And then, this last week, I know I had to miss it since I was in Alabama.
Kinder
but
Bible Wow
Kinder
Camp.
Bible Wow Camp. I heard reports from my grandchildren,
So
and they
much
loved
life
it.
In the
They had
So
a
much.
great
In the
time,
PCB,
and my
yeah.
daughter-in-law Adrian taught at Kinder Bible School. Just had a great time.
She taught my daughter.
Really? Yeah,
She had Lucy.
She had a lot of fun.
Well,
And,
that cast of characters, I think I said it last week on here. Just the people volunteering in
Yes.
both
Solid
arenas.
crews.
man,
So
Sweet.
solid. Like, who wouldn't want their kid to rub up against these adults?
That's right.
Just loving them.
Oh, yeah.
So really, really good. Well done, Young Families team. I know
Yes.
summer's kind of all gas, no breaks. So
yes, and then we've
well
got
done.
this really close knit group of senior kids that just graduated from high school that all left and just went on a trip to Arkansas by themselves.
Dr. Wiles realized sometime
I got
during the
this
day
photo. I need to
yesterday
look it up.
that his grandson was not in the state.
Yes,
And is legally an adult.
and I did not even know that
Yeah,
he was
both
going.
of those were surprises.
I didn't know he was
yesterday.
going on this trip. You
didn't know there was a trip,
no,
right?
No, and I get this photo. I know y'all can't see it on here,
Well,
but it's with Bucky. You know
One,
what you call
two,
him?
three,
I mean,
four,
the
five,
Bucky.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 11
Oh, that's
quote
so fun,
unquote
though.
adults.
Yes, well, kind of.
Legally.
Recent high school grads.
10 and my grandsons
And they planned some camping trip.
on their own.
We
on
love
their
it.
own.
We love it.
And they all just headed out, and they're having a great time. And there they are getting their picture made with the Bucky mascot.
Okay.
So, yeah. And so.
Man, good
But
times.
they love each other. That's Kelly McDaniel and I were talking about that last night, just how they're
'cause her
doing
daughter-
things
her
this
daughter would
summer.
be on it.
I didn't even know that. They've been doing all kind of activities together, saying this is their last summer together. And I was
love
like, well,
that.
who's engineering that? And she said they are. They're
Shout
doing it all.
out to our youth ministry
what
for
I was saying.
cultivating that kind of friendship.
Yeah.
Which
right?
I believe our youth ministry is doing, they call it Get Low.
Yeah.
Get
Good.
lunch on Wednesday.
I love that
I
we're
think
doing.
they're
Let's
that
just
every
start with all the
Wednesday.
ads. 'cause-
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
get,
this is brought to you by First Baptist Arlington.
get lunch on Wednesday, which they used to do. They used to go to lunch on Wednesdays, like try, they did winter chicken lunch. Remember that?
Yes.
They
Yeah.
went to many different chicken places throughout the summer, then awarded the winner.
Which one of my favorite things is Ricky's
go-
Hot Chicken.
please,
The
yeah.
winner still has.
Still
if you
has
go to
their-
Ricky,
they have a trophy.
If you go to Ricky's Hot Chicken, they have a plaque, and it's our church's logo, and it's a winner.
I love that.
Like it's best fried chicken in Arlington,
Yeah.
First Baptist Arlington.
Which, if you haven't had Ricky's Hot Chicken on South Cooper, it is really good, and you can get it without the hot, and it's just tasty
You
fried
can.
chicken.
Okay, I've
but
not had it.
one thing Chelsea told me is a little bit of feedback that it can be inaccessible to eat out
Yep.
like some families
Oh,
are like,
yeah,
this is just a
sure.
little strain, and so they've switched it, and now I think it's free check me on that. I think it's a free lunch on Wednesday.
We're going to
And
declare it right now.
And they said they've like tripled
You just
the
come to
attendance.
lunch and it's free. Go
We'll
ahead.
build that to Dr.
Yeah.
Wiles' budget.
Yeah, at least if this one's your first time and you didn't expect to pay, it's on me. But they've like doubled or tripled their attendance because it's just much more accessible.
Yeah,
so again,
that's
like
so great.
it's just great. And she said they're having to kick them out when it's over because they're just finding a good place. So
Oh,
So
I love
there's a
it.
place for you. There's a place for your kids.
That's right.
There's a place for your parents.
Yeah, just all-
We really hope that to be true. That's aspirational, but I think it's also true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I think we're living into it.
It's a part of loving each other.
Oh, man. Well,
What a segue. Let's do it.
well, before we sermonize,
Oh, wait. No segue. Yes, Luke?
we should talk about the sermon. But you're going on study leave tomorrow.
Yes, I am.
Your last day in the studio.
Let's talk.
Let's talk about it because
Yeah.
your study leave is brought to you by First Baptist Arlington.
Baptist
What's your
Arlington.
flower and
That's
what's your
right.
thorn? Isn't that what y'all do?
Yeah, we do a sunflower, a
Yeah.
thorn.
When you think about study leave, what's the sunflower? What's the thorn? No, I
Yeah,
know.
but you know, I'm excited about it. This year is a little different because,
Yes.
as you know, we're going to Australia.
We are.
We leave Sunday.
Ashley's already left.
Yeah,
Yes.
and Luke leaves Thursday.
I leave Thursday.
And is your first meeting on Monday?
I start on Monday. The Baptist World Alliance has a Next Gen Summit.
Am I
And
not? I'm not in that.
It's 18
I'm in
to
this-
35
You're
year olds.
barely in it, is
I'm
what-
barely in it.
I'm in this gen. I'm in that gen.
I'm lucky to be here, Jim.
As I was getting a haircut last week and watched all my gray hair fall onto the
you got a
spot.
haircut?
It's under here. I cut
Oh,
it.
okay,
Show
okay.
us the hairs that got cut.
Okay, I
Prove
see.
it.
All
Oh,
right,
there they
okay,
are.
all right.
There they are. For those just listening, he pulled back. He pulled back a layer.
I did get it trimmed. Okay.
It looks great.
It happens.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But as I saw all those gray hairs fall and then thought about going to a Next Gen Summit for 18 to 35 year olds, which I'm 35, so
You made it.
I barely made
You
it in.
That's
Ryan
awesome.
Hodges is getting more salt in the salt and pepper.
I might have more gray hair than you do.
Yeah, it's going to happen one day. This is a lot of clean living right here, though, man. You know, and less worry.
It's all that Mountain
You
Dew.
know, yeah, that's exactly right. And sweet tea.
We have Baptist World Alliance.
Yes.
So
I'm excited about that. And
It's an every 5-year thing.
the
It
World
is, the
Congress.
World
Thing?
Congress.
The World Congress. It sounds important.
yeah. Well,
When you put it like
all
that.
the world leaders of every Baptist union will be in one place for some strategic planning and working groups. It's not like you just go and they're just presentations. I mean, like Luke is a part of an actual working group.
We actually have
and
another church member I found out yesterday who is also part of a working group for the next 5 years. So Beverly Stuckey
there you go.
is
What
on a
did she get?
business and mission working group.
That is a good person to recruit. to
It
that.
is.
It is.
Congrats,
So-
Beverly.
So yeah, it's a very and there's just no other meeting like it in the world. And the cool thing is, you know, Baptists basically do blanket the earth. You know, there's in this, I think in the BWA, there's
I think they count 53 million.
50 something million Baptists, and they're starting a new strategic plan for, as I shared yesterday morning, to blanket the earth with the gospel and the scripture and ministry in the more developed countries where Baptists have already a footing. And so this neighborhood chaplain ministry that Luke's got information on it right here that we're trying to establish in our church, in our community. And it's Baptists of all stripes. I love it. I love the community that's there and the fact that you know, when will you have a chance to, you know, you think about the Nigerian Baptist Convention. The last time I went to a World Congress, I sat down and we were sitting across the table at a dinner with the president of the Baptist Convention, or what it's called, of Nigeria. Well, I mean, they have like 15 million members or something. I can't remember what it is. That was something crazy, you know. And he's just sitting there talking, asking me about things that we're doing here in the U.S. And I was sitting there thinking, so when am I going to schedule a meeting with the presidents of all of these unions? Never.
I think one of my Canadian Baptist friends called this Baptist Olympics.
Yes, it really is. And so it's an opportunity to just to get to know about all the programming. And we're getting more and more invested with the Baptist World Alliance. Elijah Brown is one of the most strategic leaders and thinkers in Christendom, I would say. And he's a Texan. He's one of us. He's a Texas Baptist. And what a great guy. And then yesterday I saw, I would call him Anderson, Oral Rhodes, he and his wife, and he's Elijah's new executive assistant. And he was telling me yesterday that he's about to head to Australia. And he just was excited about it, but he's also just nervous, you know, just saying, man, there's just a lot happening logistically to pull all this together from these folks coming from literally all over the world.
Oh, everywhere.
And
I would imagine that's a big assignment. Whoever's planning, whoever's
it's like
is the convener
3,500.
for that.
I think what
don't
the
know.
registration is. I can't remember.
I know there are 250 18 to 35-year-olds coming to this Next Gen Summit.
Well, there you
So
go.
it's a big,
big.
meeting,
It's
and a lot of
huge.
cultures. I mean, it's just a lot. So very cool.
And then I've got some strategic meetings set up for Ascent that I've had some of the key Baptist leaders from across the world really who are trying to find out more about it. And so on Saturday, we're having breakfast with some of them and next Saturday. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it. And, I'm also taking with me a few things that I'm working on, for the future of our church. So I will still be doing some of my study leave, even though I'll be doing that in the land down under, so to speak. But I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to I've already really started researching and, just kind of making some plans for these next couple of years. And of course, being away last week was unplanned for us. When Cindy's brother died, we obviously weren't planning on that. So spent the week in Alabama. But even there in the evenings, I had some time to do a little bit of reading and, just praying about some of the things that I want us to address as a church.
So in some ways, study leave started early.
Yeah, it kind of started a little bit early, in little ways,
early, yeah.
And but then we had a sweet time in Alabama. We rarely intentionally make time for those things, to be honest with you, but this forced us to do that. So just being with Cindy's family was a sweet time. And then I have a nephew there in Birmingham. He has 2 grown children, and they have 4 grandchildren. And we had one of the grandkids we'd never even met. So one of my nephew's sons, our daughter rather, we hadn't even met yet. So we had a sweet time with them and played and, just enjoyed them. And both of their sons are on staff at Church of the Highlands, which is this huge church in Alabama. And so we got to be with them some. And then we went and visited our parents' graves, which we rarely ever get to do,
Right.
So we went to my mom and dad's grave and Cindy's parents and grandparents and went back to my home that I grew up in, and it's in a very challenging place in Birmingham now. And so went back to where we met at UAB. 46 years ago. We went to Building 1.
But you had your 44th anniversary last week as well.
44th
Congrats.
anniversary Friday. Thank you. And
Just a good reminder that y'all could be our parents based on those numbers.
Thank you very much.
I just like to throw it in when I can.
But we went back. We stayed with some of our best friends in the world, John and Missy Morgan. John's an OBGYN there, and he and I grew up together, went to high school together, and each other's weddings, so we've known each other forever.
Right. This is a long
time
Right.
friends, and we stayed in their home and had a good time. And then we went to UAB together. John and I did, and Cindy, Missy went to Alabama, and some people get confused by that because they hear that I graduated from the University of Alabama in Birmingham. It's a different school. It's not the University of Alabama.
This is important for
That
you to
would
clarify.
make me throw up in my mouth a little bit, to be honest with you.
For everybody listening,
That's in Tuscaloosa.
Dennis Wiles did not go to
No,
Alabama.
absolutely. I don't even stop in Tuscaloosa
went to
add to the
UAB.
economy. And we're driving this time on the way home. And Cindy said, when we get to Tuscaloosa, can we get off? I'd like to get a Starbucks. I said, I do not spend money in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They can go
Not
jump
even for Dreamland?
in a lake. Okay, I'll stop at Dreamland, but Dreamland's different. Okay?
What is
barbecue.
What is Dream? Okay, thank you.
Dreamland's a famous barbecue place. But Cindy convinced me that I was contributing to the overall economy of the entire state of Alabama.
Which you would
Well
do.
done, Cindy.
Which helped.
So what I'm hearing is that you did pull up
I
in
did pull
Tuscaloosa
over
you
and went
did
to a
spend money.
Starbucks. I did.
We also generally...
But I had on
Happy
all
wife, happy
Auburn
life.
stuff. I want you to know I had on
You had
all
on this
Auburn
bright
stuff.
orange
So
shirt.
all I did was walk through and irritate everybody.
I love it. So you did your part. Okay, can I ask? I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. You just had kind of a forced, is kind of a harsh word, but a forced time in your hometown, all this
Right.
reflection. Any takeaways, bubbling? I mean, what did God have for you there? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I would
Because
say
it's just it's a
it was
unexpected
a
pause.
It was.
But
I
where
think-
was God in the middle of that?
Well, we also, on our way home, Cindy grew up in Pearl, Mississippi. So we were born in Birmingham, but her dad was an airplane pilot, and they moved a couple times. And so on our way home, we stopped in Pearl, which is right outside of Jackson, went to her home place where she grew up and where she went to school, went to her high school and all that. Went to my high school as well, which is no longer there. It's been torn down. But we both of us found ourselves, when we're at our parents' graves, both of us just said to our parents, thank you. You both gave us a heritage. You gave us some stability that obviously we didn't ask for, didn't even know we needed. We just happened to be born into these families. And that we hope that they're proud of us, for the way we've chosen to live our lives. And we also reflected on how God wove all this together, because our parents were from Birmingham. That's not true. They were living in Birmingham when we were both born. But Cindy's mother was a nurse. And so she worked for the doctor that delivered us. And so she stayed in the hospital a few extra days, Cindy's mom did. And so Cindy and I were actually in the nursery together for a couple of days when we were born. So my dad and her dad were in the dad's waiting room for 3 days together. Of course, they didn't know each other at the time. And we just reflected on how interesting it was that Cindy's dad then took a new assignment as a pilot. He went to work for the FAA. He flew commercially for a while, then he went to the FAA. Well, they moved him to Jackson, Mississippi. So she moves to Mississippi, but her grandparents both were in Birmingham. And what's interesting is her grandmother on her mother's side lived in kind of somewhat of a very well-known home in our community on the west side of Birmingham. There's a little part of Birmingham called Crumley's Chapel. And old Tom Crumley, who pretty much everybody in our area knew, had a family home. And it was in this very interesting location. You're driving down this road, and it's just a 90-degree turn. And there's a lot of wrecks on it because at night people are driving and this can be very dark. So it's a very famous place. When you first learn to drive, people say, hey, when you make the Crumley Chapel curve, don't go too fast, because it literally is a 90-degree curve. Well, old Tom Crumley's house is right there, huge piece of property right there at that curve. Well, Cindy's grandmother and granddad lived in that home. So all of my life as a kid, growing up, we would see kids out playing in that yard all the time. And we used to say, that's just a cool place, That must be the Crumley family. One of these days we're going to stop and meet all these people. So when I'm a kid driving by there, my future wife is actually one playing out in that yard, and I have no idea.
What a cool life she's having there.
And so the fact that then her dad took another transfer, he got promoted in the FAA, and he took over. He was a flight standards expert, and he basically was in charge of investigating accidents and all that. And his airline was Delta Airlines, so they moved him to Atlanta. So Cindy moves to Atlanta. Well, her mother was kind of a parish nurse at that time. She just went in the community and gave shots to all the older people, work so that they didn't have to go into the doctor's office, that kind of thing. So Cindy grew up with this heart for medicine and just thinking, okay, this is something I want to do. Well, so when it came to him, I'm still in Birmingham, and have no idea who they all are. And so when Cindy decided where to go to school for college, well, UAB has the huge medical complex for the state of Alabama. And so she visited UAB. Well, her grandparents, both of her grandmothers lived there, and she had family there. Her brother lived there. And so basically the family agreed, if you want to go to UAB, you can live with Mamaw Washington for free. And her brother said, hey, I'll take care of you. And so she moves into old Tom Crumley's house to start college. Well, I was a baseball player, and I wanted to play baseball. And so I had a scholarship to a couple places, but I got an academic scholarship to UAB. And to my dad, that was a big deal. And it was to me too, but I wanted to play baseball.
Right.
But anyway, I ended up.
He was looking at the big picture.
He was,
you were not.
And he was, which was the right thing to do. So anyway, I ended up accepting that scholarship because it paid for everything for 4 years. And we were poor, so the only opportunity to do that was for that to happen.
Yeah, because the baseball scholarships were very dependent on your performance.
They were, and
right.
just you just never knew and all that. But anyway, so I go to UAB. Well, I just decided, well, I'm just going to be a doctor. So I went and met with my physician that I grew up with, and he kind of gave me some advice of what to do. So I just started enrolling in biology, chemistry. Well, Cindy's wanting to go to physical therapy school because she's kind of wanting to follow in the footsteps of her mom. And so we meet in a chemistry class. And what was funny was when I saw her, the first time I saw her, I thought, I think I might marry her. I just thought something about her. So we were one of those giant chemistry classes, and I was on the phone, was on a payphone talking to my sister, something was going on in our family. A payphone, they used to have phones attached to the wall.
I've seen these before.
Yeah, and you could put money in them.
For the next gen.
I was going to say
listening.
for y'all, you could put money in them and you could make phone calls.
I'm not in it, yeah.
Anyway, I'm just saying.
Yes.
Anyway, so
okay,
I
go
saw
on.
her
So
go.
payphone,
She turns. I know that I'm going into that classroom down there, so I'm waiting, but I can't get off the phone. She goes in the class.
And you're like, I got to get off the phone.
I've got to go, and I'm late, so I go in a little bit late. There's only one seat in the whole room is packed, and it's right next to Cindy. And so I very coolly and calmly acted like I had this planned all along. Oh yeah, of course. Just sat down, and we ended up meeting, and then she was a basketball player, and so I was a ball player. So anyway, we met, and so when I sat down in my seat, our professor said, "Okay, y'all are all in college. You got to do what you're supposed to do." He said, "But the problem is, I'm a stickler for attendance. You may not study, you may not pay attention, but you're going to get some credit for just showing up in this class." He said, "So I'm about to hand y'all a seating chart, and wherever you're sitting right now is where you're sitting for the entire semester or whatever." And I was like, yes, this is awesome. So my point being, we have reflected on just all the machinations that brought all that together in our life, my life, her life, for us to merge together in that one chemistry class. And so when we finally decided, hey, we'll go get some lunch together or whatever, she said, "Well, why don't you just follow me home and we'll make sandwiches and we'll study out in the yard." I said, "Okay." Well, I had no idea where she was, so I just followed her. And I'll be doggone, she pulls into old Tom Crumley's house, and I pulled in behind her, and I said, "I've been driving by this house my entire life. I cannot believe that this is." I said, "Are you kin to the Crumleys?" And she said, "Well, no, but my granddaddy bought this house from the Crumley family." And I said, "I've seen you playing in this yard, as a kid." So it's just funny how all that merged together for us.
Quote my dear friend Mike Stroop, "I'm enough of a Calvinist to believe in providence."
So there's all the hand of God. I guess that would be my takeaway, that we felt like the Lord really did bring us together. There was a lot of uniqueness about us. And now we look back, and we've been to 40 states and 31 countries. 2 kids and 5 grandkids and 6 churches, and we've lived in 12 different homes, and we've had quite a ride, So yeah, all that was.
And she's going to Australia with you.
She's going to Australia. Yes,
traveling together. I mean, the whole thing.
Yes, we're traveling together, and she's helping me with we're alongside each other. We're doing some stuff for Ascent, and some connections that she's made for Restore Hope, and so. Yeah, it's just an interesting season. So, but we get back on the 20th is when we get home, and so then I'll have another couple of weeks to kind of finish up my study leave and making plans for this next little stretch for us as a church.
Then we'll hit the road again.
Looking forward to it. Yeah,
love it.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Now we should talk about the sermon.
Okay, yeah,
maybe.
Was it really relevant for your world, our world?
I don't think about these things at
Right.
all.
I mean, what's to talk about? What's to even talk
I'm not
about?
a flourishing person.
It was very
that-
ethereal, very heady, not much application. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It was about fruitfulness,
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
There's so much in there.
I think there's a summary statement in one of the quotes that you gave talking about love, I thought. In the Michael Wilkins.
Yeah.
Great quote.
Jesus is not simply advocating for an emotional attachment or an abstract love. Rather, love here indicates a concrete responsibility, the act of being useful and beneficial to one's neighbors, both Jew and Gentile. ...
So love.
I like that concrete responsibility.
Yes.
I think that's a really helpful, because we've talked about it a million times. Love can be very undefined, very nebulous. But when you say it's actually, in this case, a concrete responsibility to your neighbor, just regardless of who they are,
That's right.
that'll preach.
Yeah.
There's something to talk about there, right?
That's right.
So anyway, just teeing y'all up. It's kind of y'all's. Not that I don't care about this. But it's literally kind of
we
your
know
job.
you care.
It's your role on our staff. I mean, and you preached it, so I think I'll just ask some questions and keep it moving.
Well, what do you want to know?
Well, I see that you brought a flyer with you.
I did.
And Dr. Wiles, you talked about, I think it ties in well, BWA, this, the Rick Warren initiated, what are they calling that?
Finish the task.
Finish the task. And one of the tools, mechanisms for finishing the task of global evangelism is this neighborhood chaplaincy
Yes.
program. initiative. And so, Luke, you think that's worthwhile, and
I do.
you're
We're doing
helping our
trainings in
church
adult
be
Bible
informed.
studies right now.
Yes.
So if you teach one of our adult Bible study departments, a while back I sent an email with a link where you could kind of book a time for me to come teach your class. I'd love to do it. I'll send another link again soon in case you've lost it. But yeah, right now we're working through it with our adult Bible studies, but we have a nice little handout we give people. And if you're not in a Bible study, we'll talk because I'd love to work through it with you.
And if you're just listening, that's a piece of paper that.
Yeah, I held up a piece of paper.
But he'd love to meet with you and talk to you about it. Yeah.
So I like BWA's definition because I think you say neighborhood chaplain and people kind of go,
What am I signing up for?
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I really getting into?
so it's someone who brings the love, hope, hospitality, and healing of Jesus to their
Love,
neighbors.
hope, hospitality, and healing.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to represent that to your neighbor?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing to hold up, right?
And I think a tangible expression to me of the gospel is hospitality, which is, when the Stricklands shared their testimony
Oh, my goodness.
last week, just, a Muslim neighbor moves in next door. They're a little nervous.
Very
They've got
honest.
preconceived notions about it. And come to find out, Muslims are people, just like we are. They also have a little bit of anxiety.
Yep.
They know they're in the minority in our culture, and yet they're trying to live out their faith, even though we disagree with their conclusion. I appreciate their fervor. I'm not talking about those who become terrorists and
No, but
kill
there's
the
some
infidels, but
deeply
I mean,
faithful
Yeah,
Muslims
but it's
who love
helpful
their
to,
neighbors.
that's a minority.
Absolutely.
It's helpful
Yeah.
for us to say
Yes.
that's a minority.
Right. And so
we're
you're
obviously
trying
not
to-
blessing that in
No.
any regard.
No,
Christian
no matter
as
who it
well.
is.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes. Any religious extremist would be not a good thing.
So, but just being thoughtful and learning about them and showing hospitality, well, that just goes so far to me, and I think there's something about sharing meals together.
Yep. So we actually, when we're talking about neighborhood chaplaincy, and this is another tool that,
Just give us a mini training. You can do it.
I'll do a
I
little.
don't mind.
some of these tools that BWA has kind of developed alongside of this or partnered with, but they're using these BLESS habits, which is an acronym, and it's begin with prayer, listen, eat, serve, and share. So BLESS. Begin with prayer, listen, eat, serve, share.
That's so good, though, isn't it?
Prayer and listening
Yeah.
can really take you a long way with your neighbors.
They really
can.
can.
Absolutely.
And so
I bet if you pray and listen, you could figure out what to do next pretty easily.
you really can.
If you listen well and have the Spirit kind of going before you in prayer,
Yep.
I bet the solutions can emerge pretty quickly.
It really does.
Yeah.
And so
Not to dismiss eat, serve, share, but those will come naturally out of
But you
what
begin
you're
with
listening.
prayer.
Yeah.
And
yes,
so I'm
yes, yes, yes.
encouraging people to pray for two things. First, pray for yourself. I'm really trying to encourage our people to pray. Luke 24:49, where Jesus says, wait until you've been clothed with power from on high. So I'm just, as you get dressed in the morning, pray that the Holy Spirit will clothe you with its power from on high. So just make that your little morning liturgy as you're getting dressed. As you put on your physical clothes, pray for the Holy Spirit to clothe you.
Everybody gets dressed in the morning.
We hope.
Yeah, they should.
I hope both that you're clothed and both that you put on fresh clothes every morning. And in doing that, invite God into preparing you for. That's great.
Yeah. And then pray for your neighbors by name. And so we have some tools we
Which
can
is
help
the
you with.
app really helps you
Yeah.
know your neighbors' names.
So there's an app called Bless Every Home. Again, it's a tool we've learned about through BWA, but it's a good tool.
I think it's the right use of technology. We
Yeah.
get kind of icked out with like data dumps and all that. I mean, it's just we're in that age. But this is, I feel, and I'm one that's probably a late adopter to some of this. I feel that it's the right use of like just identifying, using some data that we have.
So it basically
Just
pulls like
name your neighbors. But
phone
it's-
book-esque
Yeah,
data.
it's something
and-
that you couldn't get on like the Tarrant County.
Yeah.
Because I
it's
stalk
not
my
like
neighbors.
secret data. I mean,
Right.
it's
You put in your
publicly
address,
Just like
available.
and
who
it pulls
owns
the
the home
40
next to you.
closest households next to yours and gives you the names of the adults, no children.
Right.
And, don't treat it like it's 100% accurate because if it's a renter, sometimes it's got the landlord's name. But it's going to give you a good
And mine
starting
has my
place.
legal name, which nobody uses. I mean,
Yeah.
but
So it's not perfect, but it's a starting point. It gives you a little
Yeah, but-
scripture passage to pray and it prompts you to pray for 5 of your neighbors every single day.
yeah, and don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it's not a really good tool to use.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's good. And just the whole concept, though, of, to me, some when Paul said somewhere, been through all this has happened to me, I've been beaten, whatever. He said, plus the daily burden of the churches. Just a sense of carrying a burden appropriately for your community, for your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And being a pastoral presence, you don't have to be an expert in the Bible. You don't have to be, a trained counselor. You can just
This is
be
about being available.
Yeah, just be a Christian.
And this might be helpful. If it does get above your head, just call us.
Of
Like
course.
refer to us because
Yes.
we have a lot of resources.
For
Not that we're
sure.
we can't
Yeah,
solve everything, but
of
we're
course.
connected and we can help.
Yeah.
So if it gets weird, if you got a neighbor that you're like, whoa, this is a bottomless pit and I didn't
Right.
realize it, just,
Right.
we can help you. Like, don't be afraid of that unknown X factor.
Yeah.
Just go and love people
Yeah.
and we'll help, support from this end if we need it.
And
So-
that's what I tried to say yesterday. I can't in one of the sermons. I don't know if I said it in both. It doesn't mean that you just all of a sudden become weird. You're not standing in your
No.
yard with a sign.
But what if you had like a
repent or-
picnic table?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But there's
Start
so many ways to do it, and for me personally, it's a little different. Everybody in my neighborhood knows I'm the pastor at First Baptist Arlington, so it's a
Right.
little odd for me, but it has opened doors for me though because I'll be out, replanting grass, which is what I'm doing right now, and
We heard about this.
my neighbors sometimes will just stop by, just say, hey. Tell me something about happened to me last week before I went to Alabama a week or so ago. One of them just stopped by and said, "Hey, man, I'm really working on this," and they know who I am, so I get that. But I think as they get to know you, people are willing to share things
are.
with you, and gives you a chance to feel connected to them and to pray with them, and so.
On our street, Chad and Deanne Hollander have lived there 20 years, maybe
Yeah.
more. And they have done a good job cultivating care for the street. They know everybody, and they, Chad's good at just identifying, physical, like that limb is down in your yard. I can do that, that kind of thing.
Right.
They've really cultivated that well.
Yeah.
And then when we moved in, they kind of advocated for us. They gave credibility, like, hey, these people are cool. You can trust them too.
Yeah.
Which helped us kind of, and the triplets.
Which is great.
Are magnets for people.
Yes.
Because it's just this
You think?
thing. Yeah.
You just put them out in the front yard on display. Is that what y'all do? Put a big fence up and let them play
Well,
around.
and you joke, but I think
it attracts people. It does.
does.
Especially like we have some. We live in West Arlington, and a lot of these Arlington neighborhoods like that are transitional. A lot of people that raise their kids there, and now they're widows or older, empty nesters, but also add 20 years. And so having young kids move in, they're really excited. Like there's a couple of houses on our street have sold, and young families have moved in, and they're all like, they're gonna have a baby next week. It's just there's some life to it. And so the kids
it's
are.
fun.
You don't want to use your kids manipulatively. But,
No, but I think
inviting people into the
You can't help with your
family.
three, though.
can't help it. But some of this is switching from being backyard people to front yard people.
Yeah.
Is one of the ways that I've tried to explain this is we're so tempted to just spend time on our back patios or in the privacy of our backyards.
Right.
A lot of this is just go spend time in your front yard, put a swing in your front yard, put a picnic table in your front yard. We've had families who have really kind of committed to this idea, and they're playing more with their kids in their front yard than their backyard now. And it's just because it makes you visible and available and ready for conversation.
Well, we live in a cul-de-sac, and so when our grandkids are over, particularly the older ones, we play football in the street, or we have a little. It's not really baseball. It is a bat and a ball, but anyway, anybody could hit it. But we play that out in the cul-de-sac. So our neighbors all see that, so sometimes they'll stop and talk to us and just see us out there. And so there's something about that. I think being visible and just kind of being a part of the community. Our friends John and Missy, they have a little. In their neighborhood, the last time we were there, we didn't do it this time because we didn't have time, but the last time we were there, they have a little sitting area on their front porch. And in the evenings, they just sit out there. And so we went out there with them a couple times our last visit there, and it was just fascinating to me how many people spoke to them, people out walking and know that they're there. So they're waving it, hey, Dr. Morgan, and they'll talk for just a minute. And of course, he's delivered several of their babies, so some of them.
Yeah, that helps too.
Yeah.
Quite a vulnerable moment.
But I thought that was kind of cool, though. I thought, well, that's interesting. So I've gotten to where when I'm working out in the yard, I'll just put one of my chairs out there, and sometimes Cindy will come sit out there and so as well. So I've spent a lot more time in the front. When you have a pool in the backyard, you kind of feel obligated to for part of the year to be there. But I've been a little more intentional about being in the front yard, and it's been interesting to me how many more conversations I have. And so just some practical things. Yeah. And to me, this whole idea of loving your neighbors yourself, I tried to say it Sunday morning. I think you can get off if you want to spend a whole lot of time about how you love yourself. I believe you're supposed to love yourself. I'm not saying that, but I don't think that's really what Jesus was saying. I think it's just more simple than that you take care of yourself. Well, do the same thing for other people. Just think about what is it like to be them. What about life in their shoes? How would you respond if this were your station in life? You know what you're doing. And so I think there's just a practical side to this that Jesus was trying to put in front of us, and which is not just, but it just wasn't from Jesus. It's from Leviticus.
Yeah.
I mean, this
He didn't make it up.
Jesus was actually drawing on a very rich tradition that I think we forget about.
Of these people living differently among their community. There's power in that, and it's I think there's and it's very personal and very relational. I love that about it. I think that sometimes in America, so often we get caught up in the herd mentality about Christianity, and it becomes just this very public, politicized, polarized expression of the gospel. When to me, I think the calling of God is more personal and relational. Yeah. That's where everything makes a difference.
I believe at least in one service you told people to calm down.
Yeah. Yes.
That was a sermon in itself.
Yeah. But we even thought that Cindy's brother, when he died, her brother, was not a church-going guy per se, but he became a believer and he was much younger. But he was a neighbor, and I think part of that was kind of his way of being who he thought he was supposed to be in his community. Well, they have 100 acres, and so he has this huge farm with squash and corn. I'm not sure what all, and it was just fascinating for us to see. And they live in a rural area, but they all know each other. All the people that come up there, the folks that are already saying, "Hey, we'll come help you harvest this corn," and they share it with the community, and just the testimonies we heard from some of those folks just about how he made a tangible everyday, not on some big crusade. He was not that kind of guy, but just in the personal relationships, people were appreciative and very sweet in how they responded to Cindy's family. And it was just a reminder to me that, that you make a difference in the everyday.
Yes.
That's really why you love your neighbors yourself, Now, big things, of course, Mission Arlington, Christian Job Corps.
Yeah, the corporate.
All of those things.
But most of us aren't going to go start a nonprofit.
That's right. Yeah. We just do this in our everyday life.
But everybody can live intentionally in the set of people that God has placed around you.
You can love your neighbors yourself. You actually can do it.
You really can.
And you actually kind of have to.
Yeah.
I mean, to be faithful.
It's part of our obligation.
One of the nice things
concrete responsibility.
It is concrete.
Is what the
and we're called
says,
to it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the nice things about starting with your neighborhood, I think office chaplaincy, school chaplaincy, it's all a great idea. Start at home. I think part of that is most of us live in a family. Some of us don't, but a lot of us live with other people. And one of the great things about that is you're not going out to do it alone. When you go to your office, you go as an individual.
Yeah, that's true.
You go alone. Start at home as much as you can. I recognize people have demanding work schedules, and I know what it's like to spend a lot of time at an elementary school. But start where you live, learn the principles there, and then take them with you. Your neighborhood doesn't have an HR department that you've got to figure out how to work around. Yeah. So start practicing at home and then take it with you. And what I found is the people who really lean into neighborhood chaplaincy, it goes to work with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of becomes a part of your way of life, I guess.
It does.
Which is awesome. It's great. Awesome.
I think that's a great place to put a pin in it. Blessings to both of you as you travel around the world.
You're out for the rest of the month. I think I'm out for the next 2 podcasts.
Yeah. So blessings. I hope it's meaningful and safe, and flights are on time, and all that. And for the rest of us, we're excited. Ryan Chandler's preaching this Sunday, and we'll have him in the studio next Monday. So we'll go from there.
Great.
Blessings.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for listening to the Tell Me More podcast today. You can subscribe to this podcast on your app of choice, or you can visit us at fbca.org to find out more information about the podcast and our church. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.